When I was in high school, my friends and I would often visit the cemetery that was on the outskirts of town. The cemetery grounds were massive, but it wasn't just the cemetery. The grounds were covered with a ton of forested land. We spent the better part of a year visiting that cemetery on the weekends to do what degenerate teenagers do. We would wait until it got late, and then we would enter the cemetery. Most of the time, we would just find a quiet spot to post up and then chill there for a while. However, once in a while, we would explore the cemetery and the surrounding woods, but we would never explore too deep into the woods just because it was so dark. That was usually on special occasions, like when we would invite the girls to come with us. There was one specific night when we were in the cemetery that I still think about to this day because I can't really explain what happened. It's without a doubt the scariest thing that's ever happened to me. On that night, it was a group of 6 of us that made the trip to the cemetery. Myself with my 2 best friends and 3 girls from our class. I was able to get some stuff for our cemetery hangout session that may be considered illegal for kids that age, and I'll leave it at that. This helped sweeten the deal to get the girls to come hang out with us. There was one of the girls, just in case, I'll call her Jane to protect her privacy. I really liked Jane, but I don't think she ever liked me. At least not in the way I wish she liked me. I was trying super hard that night to change her mind, but it wasn't happening. As the night went on, Jane wanted to explore the woods that surrounded the cemetery. We were kind of against it because the woods were so large and it was so dark. It just seemed like a dangerous and bad idea. Well, being the weak-minded individual I've always been, it didn't take much for Jane to convince me to explore the woods with her. When the girl you like wants to go into the dark woods with you, you don't think twice and you agree. My friends tried to be good wingmen, and they convinced Jane's 2 friends to stay behind with them. Jane and I headed into the woods. She was being kind of weird, but I didn't care. She was talking to me about rituals and all sorts of other things. I just kept nodding along with her and enjoying the moment. We were walking slowly because of how dark it was underneath all the trees. We were walking in an area of the cemetery grounds I'd never seen before. It was actually kind of sad. There were extremely old graves in this part of the woods that had clearly been forgotten by time and nature. The names were barely readable, the gravestones were falling apart, and the intact ones were completely covered with moss and leaves. I didn't even know there were graves all the way back there. These hidden graves weren't the only thing we found while walking. Even further into the woods was a small, abandoned church. At first, I thought it could have been a mausoleum of some kind, but once we got closer and really checked it out, it was for sure a small church. I couldn't believe my eyes. Jane was doing this weird thing where she was talking about all the dead souls and whatnot. I just thought it was super cool that a random church was way out here and completely abandoned. I wanted to go inside and check it out. She was apprehensive about it. She thought if we broke in, we might disturb the souls resting there. I was respectful of her comment, but my honest thoughts were that that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. I spent a few minutes trying to convince her that we wouldn't be disturbing anything, and she finally agreed to check it out with me. We walked up the 2 wooden doors that were on the front of the old church. They had been chained shut and locked. I could tell that Jane was feeling off, but I continued to try to open the door. Instead of caring about her feelings, I was trying to prove to her that I was brave or something. I don't even know what my logic was. After smashing into the door a few times, I broke part of the door hinge, and I was able to push it open. I stepped into the old building, and it was so cool at first. It had maybe 7 or 8 rows of pews. There was a small altar directly opposite the doors, and even a few books lying around. Jane stood in the doorway and kept trying to convince me that we should leave. I was doing the opposite. I was walking around the church, trying to convince Jane to come inside. I made my way to the altar and started doing a disrespectful impersonation of a preacher. She wasn't amused with my immature antics. I took another step, and I got what I deserved. The floorboards behind the altar must have been weak, because they snapped and I fell right through the floor. It was probably a good 10-foot drop, and it hurt. It was a hard, rocky floor. That was enough to get Jane to finally enter the church. She ran to the hole in the floor to make sure I was okay. I shouted up that I was fine, even though I was hurting badly. I took out my cell phone, which didn't have the best flashlight, but at least it was something. I shined the light near the hole, and I noticed a ladder had been put there to get back up. But it was broken. Jane told me that it looked like it was a crawl space door on the floor. I asked her to run back and grab my friends, Even though we were in the woods, it wouldn't take her that long to run back. She didn't want to leave me, but I told her it was fine. I just wanted to get out of the hole. She complained about it, but eventually I heard her run through the wooden door. I tried calling my friends' cell phones to let them know Jane was running back, but neither one of them picked up. While I was waiting, I turned on the flashlight again and started to use it to scan the room I was in. Initially, I didn't want to because I was terrified of spiders, and this seemed like a hotbed for spiders. At first glance, it just seemed like a small, regular room with a couple of wooden beams. I went over to the destroyed ladder to see if there was any way I could make it work, but it was destroyed beyond repair. While I was looking at the ladder, I thought I heard something behind me. It sounded like movement, but not like footsteps, almost like something was shuffling. I turned around and scanned the other side of the room with my light. I didn't see anything at first. As I whipped the light around, I noticed something out of the corner of my eye. I positioned the light on the ground near one of the wooden beams. The dirt that was on the rocky ground looked like it had been disturbed in some way. My heart was beating fast, but I didn't know why. I couldn't say for sure if the dirt had looked like that before. I started to feel the gravity of my situation. I was scared now, and I didn't even know why. I started shouting for my friends to hurry up. While I was staring up at the hole and shouting, I thought I heard another sound. This time, it looked like someone was grunting. Even though every part of my gut was telling me not to look, I shined the light again over in the direction where I thought I heard the grunt. All I could do was scream. Staring right at me was some strange man. The light from my phone flashlight was bouncing off his bald head. He had these angry eyes that felt like they just went right through me. He was on the ground, and I kid you not, he was crawling towards me. I started to freak out. I was pleading for my friends to hurry up. I heard the sound of the wooden door shoot open, and one of my friends dropped this huge tree branch down the hole. I climbed up the branch, and with every step, I could feel the branch start to snap under my weight. By some miracle, the branch didn't snap completely, and I made it to the top. My friends were confused when they got there because I was screaming as if my life depended on it. I told them that there was a person down there. I told them not to, but they leaned over the hole and looked down there with their flashlights. They didn't believe me, and they wanted to see for themselves. When they looked, they saw him, but instead of crawling toward me, he was crawling back behind the pillar. One of my friends insisted that we get help because they suggested that this person could be in trouble. My other friends somehow convinced us that we needed to just leave, and that person meant us harm. As we left, I did drop the tree branch back down there, so if this person did need help, hopefully the tree branch would support them. For 2 days, the guilt was eating me alive,